Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Morning, all of you. Thank you so much for giving us opportunity to host you all. Now we have eminent panelists for today's sessions, and definitely we are hoping to have a good sessions on IP funding opportunities for the startups and MSMEs. Uh, Now I request Mr. Hemang to take over. Hemang is the co-chairman of SOCHM IPR Council and India Engineering Lead Qualcomm Technology. Hemang, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nahid. Thank you, ASOCHAM team for organizing this webinar. As some of you may know, Qualcomm has been engaging with startups since 2016. We've been educating them on the importance of intellectual property, even as ASOCHAM IPR Council and also with ASOCHAM IP Facilitation Center. There's a fair amount of outreach which is going on, and we thought one of the important topics when it comes to startups and SMEs is looking for funds as to how they can create and maximize their IP portfolio. So today we are joined by an eminent panel of speakers. I'll first introduce them very briefly, and then I'll give a more detailed introduction when I turn the floor over to them, in their respective orders. We have Dr. Shishendra Mukherjee, who's the mission director for BIRAC. I'm sorry, I lost. He's the mission director for Grand Challenges, which is supported by DBT BIRAC. We had Dr. A.K. Garg on the agenda. Now, due to an unavoidable situation, he could not join us, and replacing him is the manager for Center for Development and Advanced Computing, Mr. Parimal Khade. We also have Mr. Tanuj Junjunwala, who's a co-founder and CEO for Planis Technologies, a very exciting startup. You will love what they have to share. And finally, we have my dear colleague, Mr. Pushkar Apte, who's the Director of Business Development for Qualcomm Technology Licensing in India. I wanted to share a bit about the program L2 Pro. So request Yashpal, can you please enable screen sharing for me? So L2 Pro India is an initiative that was started, based on our first-hand observations in interacting with startups across India. When we saw through our IP workshops the kind of questions that startups had, the challenges that they all faced, uh, you know, we had a discussion, with DPIIT and CPAM, and they said that hey, it will be great to have an IP e-learning platform which is relevant for startups. So not so much about the theoretical knowledge about intellectual property, but rather let's focus on how startups can really apply that at their end. So this L2 Pro initiative is a collaboration between CPAM at DPIIT, NLU Delhi, and Qualcomm. What it does is it educates startups, small and medium enterprises, and innovators on the fundamentals of IP. The broad topics covered are how to cover your innovations with patents, how to use copyrights, how to develop trademarks, really build an IP portfolio from a business perspective. It covers a whole lot of topics which are spread across 3 modules: basic, intermediate, and advanced. We believe everyone should be familiar with the basics of intellectual property and how you should think about it as a part of your business. The intermediate level goes a bit deeper into what are some of the practical considerations when you start your IP processes. And this applies towards, let's say, how you might do prior art searches, or for example, when you might be looking at assignment, or really how you build towards and manage an IP portfolio. Finally, we have the advanced level, which goes into even further more topics, which is access to funding and venture capital. This is of primary importance as this year is an amazing year for Indian startups with the amount of venture capital money, which the amount of funding they are raising. It helps. We also talk about standards and disputes. Because the content is relevant to startup CTOs and founders, we have changed how it is presented. It's in an interactive visual format. It captures the key highlights in an almost punchy manner. There are in between questions, Q&As, which from the user to make sure that they're aware about what they've learned. The course also has an introductory video and a summary video. So in about, let's say, 2 minutes of introductory video and a similar length for a summary video, you can capture the essence of the entire lesson before you can dive in deeper. I'm showing you some of the screenshots, and this is from the web version. So you can access L2 Pro either on the website directly, l2proindia.com, or you can access it on your phone by downloading either the Android app or the iOS app. Later in the chat box, we will paste the links, for your reference. Also, at the end of each module, there is an assessment, and those who successfully complete the assessment will be given a certificate on the spot. And the certificate, is by DPIIT, CPAM, NLU Delhi, and Qualcomm. So far, we have more than 2,000 people who have benefited from L2 Pro. They have applied the learnings towards their IP journey, and we look forward to many more startups and SMEs taking this course. So thank you so much for your time and attention. We can take questions, so do chime in with your questions, in the chat box. What I will now do is, in the meantime, I will stop sharing from my side, and I will bring over Dr. Shishendu. So, Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee has trained as a medical microbiologist. He has a global and national exposure with more than 2 decades of high-level work ex in top organizations. He brings to us various perspectives related to healthcare, especially public health issues, unmet medical needs, food and nutritional challenges in India and across the globe. He has devised and formulated strategies for mitigating challenges and bridging gaps through impact funding. He has worked independently as well as with multitudes of partners for a complete oversight of cutting-edge research, that impinge on national and global translational research. He has a deep knowledge in pharmaceuticals, biopharma, and medtech industry globally. Now, Dr. Mukherjee holds a PhD in microbiology. He's a law graduate and has done advanced courses in strategy management from IIM Kolkata. We are also very proud to have met with a number of startups that have received support and assistance from BIRAC. Very pleased to have you on board, Dr. Mukherjee, and I'll turn the floor over to you. Sir, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemang, and thank you everybody for inviting me to Yashpal for the invite today here in this, and I am joined with my colleague here today. Yashpal, can you make Vinita as so that she can share my slides? It will be easier for me to present it. Is that possible?
Shared, sir. Shared.
Yeah. So Vinita, can you share my slide? Vinita is my colleague in the IP and technology management team. She's the chief manager in technology, and quickly, and I think thank you, Hemang, for giving and really such type of online courses is really essential for our startup community and academic community as well, who need to have this basic understanding of at least identifying innovation. So which innovation needs protection, which innovation doesn't need protection, some basic tools to identify the prior art and how to take it forward. I think that's really helpful. I really compliment all of you for that. So I will be speaking about funding opportunities by BIRAC to take startups and MSMEs to the next level. Can I have the next slide, please? Just to give you an update of what is BIRAC. Next slide, please. So BIRAC is basically a not-for-profit public sector enterprise established by the Department of Biotechnology under the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, to really enable the innovation ecosystem in this country. We actually are funders. 60 to 70% of our work is funding from pre-proof of concept till product commercialization and marketing. We have entire amount of portfolio which funds that, and in a minute I'll tell you about that. But apart from this, our major job, another job is to really enable the funding to enable the innovation ecosystem in this country. So we have dedicated team of IP and technology transfer group within BIRAC who really helps with the innovators, startups, academicians to really spin off their innovation into IP and get them protected and exploit them. We have technology transfers, once to file an IP, how to license that IP. That also is one of our mandate, support in regulatory strategy, exit strategy, business plan development. We really work with the team along the entire gamut of the innovation cycle, basically from concept to reality. We are there to support them apart from our basic tool, which is of funding. So next slide, please. So this is our mandate to stimulate, foster, and enhance strategic research and innovation capabilities, particularly startups, SMEs, for creation of affordable products and addressing the needs of the large section of the society. So that's basically our goal. I just wanted to say the science is critical enable to be. We fund good science, but science is 60% of the innovation cycle. 40% is other issues like IP, regulatory issues, business plan. How you write basically grant applications also, that also needs to be really addressed. Next slide, please. So this is a cycle which BIRAC generally follows. If you see, I think a lot of people must have, a lot of participants must have seen this slide. We start from basic ideation and move to late stage development and to the market. So we have funding pots for all of them. And we really support from ideation to idea, the proof of concept, validation of the proof of concept, to crossing the value of death, that is the early stage of development and the late stage of development, and then the market. Recently, we have also started our ACE fund, which is a venture fund which we have joined in, which is a fund of funds. We support the startups we support the fund in investing in the startups. So that is what, and then we start from very early. We start from the student cycle itself. We have programs for students like, students can do immersions as well as start the working at the university level as well. So we cover, and this is all possible with our network of incubators across the country. We have 60 plus incubators of the BioNest and incubators across the country, which really support the innovation ecosystem. And these incubators are mandated to provide mentorship to the startups in terms of funding as well as through us, plus provide help in IP, regulatory, business plan, and move it the innovations forward. Next slide, please. So this is just explaining how we work on. So we have a program on the proof of concept of innovation, which is big. The biotechnology ignition grant, which is 18-month grant or 50 lakhs grant, which really helps you to create that innovation. Then early stage, we have small business industry research initiative, which is one of the oldest program which BIRAC runs. It was inherited from DBT initially, which works. Academia can work together in the industry, and academia can work together and get funds out of them. We have subparts here at the CRS, the academic research grant, the PACE and the PACE, CRS, and other programs come under it. We have a high risk funding where we fund industries in an equitable manner called the BIPP. And then we have good programs of validation, which is academic program. So we have entire portfolio of programs to support innovation. And of course, the IP generated here is owned by the company or the innovator himself. And so these are the three spaces which we work on. And IP and technology management phase we will be concentrating here today. It's the major area of BIRAC's focus. And we fund innovations. We fund filing of patents, and with our team, and also identify them to be commercially exploited to the next level. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, so we, as I told you, the technology management offering to innovators and startup. Next slide, Vinita. So we have in-house services, and we provide that through our impaneled patent law firms and things like that, and also strong in-house capabilities of doing patent searches for innovators. So any of the BIRAC supported the innovation can approach us, and this is to the cost of BIRAC. We don't charge the innovators. We do patentability search, freedom to operate search, validity and invalidity search, status of searches on prior art. So any innovation which comes to us from our innovator, we regulatory handhold and do that, is we do those searches regularly and keep the innovators informed that whether this innovation is worth protecting, or we don't need to protecting, or this is quite a congested place in terms of the landscaping of IP or prior art, and this is the challenge. Patent drafting and filing prosecution through our IP law firms, we do it. Landscaping analysis, we brought out a couple of reports for our internal usage as well. We don't publish them, but for internal usage, for the management to take decision on particular funding strategy. The IP team in BIRAC, led by Vinita, continuously does that. We do patent portfolio management for in-house capacity buildings, and we regularly do IP law collect clinic and workshops, which I will talk to you in a few moments time. Next slide, please. So this is, and in the technology management, so IP and technology management is one group within BIRAC called the Specialized Services Group, where we do technology assessment and evaluation, IP evaluation, market evaluation, market technology, feasibility reports. So we do all sorts of these evaluations and connect them to the connect our innovators to a possible a company or industry where they want to license their IP. And we do all the negotiations on their behalf as well, and help them in drafting CDAs and other MOUs as well. So our legal team does that. We do a lot of policy initiatives within BIRAC as well. And next slide. And we have a very initiative, very interesting scheme called BIRAC Path. Patent technology. So BIRAC Path basically is a scheme where all BIRAC funded innovations can approach us for hand-holding them in IP filing. So I help them to identify innovations. If it needs protection through through our IP law firms, we'll help them to file IPs. And then after a year, if the provisional application is filed, after a year, we help them to file the complete application, then help them to extend it to a PCT. Then after 18 months of PCT filing or 19 months, we help them to enter national phases. 3 years post national phases filing, we will be helping them to exploit. So entire from day 1 to the 30 months of the initial patent process, you really handhold them to find out the possible licensing. And first 2 years of patent maintenance, we also BIRAC supports them in giving them patent maintenance as well. And this is done for all BIRAC supported projects which needs IP protection, handholding, mentorship. And this is a one of the very unique scheme which BIRAC has done. And we are really aggressively working it to take it forward. So to our innovators who are really encouraged to file IP, and not only file IP, but need to exploit their IP for further licensing. Next slide, please. So this is the scheme which I just described to you. This is open throughout the year. Any innovator who has been funded through our cycles, when any other funding scheme can walk to us throughout the year. It is open 24/7 and 365 days. They can come to us and they can file their IP, and we'll help them to file their IP, which is a very streamlined process within BIRAC now. Next slide, please. So what I described you about the entire IP filing, and we support them and how we move around. Next slide. So this is how we share the revenues out of our IP. Then IP and technology transfer. Next slide. So we've also provide strong technology transfer and commercialization as was described to you earlier. Next slide. IP Law Collect Clinic, and every second Friday of the month, we have an open darbar or open session where with all our funded applications which have been funded and which wants to file an IP, but before filing, they need an advisory advice from BIRAC. We have a panel of law firms, our experts join in, and Vinita leads onto it. And we really, the people can, the innovators can come, or academics or startups can come and talk to our, law firms, the experts, to identify their innovations and how to take it. So this is January onwards we have started it, and this has gained a good traction of appointment. This is through an appointment system which is done online, and the applicants can come in, get a free advisory. Everything is free. Basically, we fund them, but here they can get their advisory on how to identify innovations and take it to the next level. So we are really working on this very, very aggressively. Next slide, please. So I think that was my last slide. So the idea of BIRAC, as I told you, is to enable an innovation ecosystem. And IP is a strong, one of the enablers in the innovation, IP and technology management. So BIRAC, apart from funding, is really supporting IP-enabled technology transfer from not only in India, but across the globe as well. We tie up with our partners to support that. Once again, I thank Assocham and Hemang for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukherjee. I mean, it's amazing to see the kind of support you are providing, and truly, it's end to end. I especially love the IP Darbar and that word specifically, because it's one of the things that we have done at our end, and what we've seen is over time, the more you do it, people start opening up, and then their deep questions start coming out. Yeah, sir, I had one question which has come up, from the chat, which is, does BIRAC only support pure biotech companies, or does it also support medtech companies who may apply, say, electronics or AI or software to solve biotech problems? Can you expand on that, please?
So as a funding, we have a dedicated mandate. Of course, our name has biotechnology into it. But if you see our funding portfolio, we had medical technologies programs also with MATI. We had supported a big call of application there. So we fund medical technologies. Our big grant, I think 30 to 40% is medical technologies and medtech devices as well. So it needs to have a certain element of a medical or life science element, because technology can be applied everywhere. So medical technology is a part of it. So we support that. But suppose somebody comes on funding or a transformer or something like that, which will never fall into a biotech limit, but a medical technology, medical devices, we have dedicated scheme, and we support medical technology very heavily. So we have programs and schemes to do that, and we support medical technologies, medtech devices, we support.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll just pause to see if there's any other question which has come up in the chat box.
Hemang, I was just typing my question on the chat box. Dr. Mukherjee, thanks so much for your insightful remarks. It's such a pleasure listening to you. This is my second time. The first time you were present at the Operation Asha event, when I listen to you. Sir, can you speak about, 2 or 3, key IPs which have got commercialized, just kind of so that our audience can know
Sure.
Some of these successes, how this IP was developed, how was it commercialized, maybe, 2 or 3 of your most successful ones.
Yeah. So I will speak about one, and then I will ask my colleague Vinita to speak about 2 or 3 more. Vinita, are you online?
Yes, sir.
So surely I will ask Vinita to speak on one of. So one of the funded programs through our Welcome Trust program we did on smart canes. You must have heard about the smart cane for the visually challenged persons, and it was developed by being led by Professor Bala in IIT Delhi. And then it was a very interesting funding opportunity which we had under the Affordable Healthcare Initiative. We funded a very, very initial prototype of a smart cane, and then it got validated with a company called Phoenix Medical System at Chennai. Now, then validation doesn't mean that it only gets validated at one or two. Then we National Association of Blind or Saksham Trust validated it to the visually challenged people. So initially, when the first prototype, we helped them to file the IP, and that IP got exploited and transferred, and IIT transferred that technology to Phoenix at ₹1. Then Phoenix scaled it up and manufactured. And right now, it is available in the market at our globally it is for $300, but India it is available for almost ₹2,500. That is one of the beautiful innovations which moved out, and now it is there. Over to Vinita to talk about few other innovations which we have supported and of course got licensor. Over to you, Vinita. Vinita?
Yes, sir. So,
Can you?
yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Vinita.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a couple of innovations basically which are linked with the patent. Though there are other products funded by BIREC and they are into market, but if we talk about specifically if they are linked with the IP which we have supported or funded under BIREC Path Scheme, so I can give you an example of one company which is the Windmill Health. And this technology which they have developed is the foot pedal, and initially it was supported by because they were part of the Stanford India Biodesign program, and DBT also supported them, and later on they were funded by BIREC under Ignition grant to develop the product. So now when they approach us under the BIREC Path Scheme, they were looking for so they had the initial provisional patent application and complete and PCT application. So they were looking for the national phase filing. And at the same time, they were looking for the partners to commercialize this particular innovation. And when we started working with them for the national phase filing, and they also, they were able to sign the MOU with one of the company which were actually working for them as a distribution partner. So they are able to, based on this IP, which were actually supported for different countries, mainly in US, Europe, and Europe from the BIREC side. And they also filed their application in other countries from their own fund. So they were able to commercialize this particular innovation in different countries. So that is one of the good example. But at the same time, because this scheme is open for the all BIREC innovators, so we also receive applications from the academic institutions. So academic institutions technology generally comes at POC level. So we are helping them for identifying the industry so that industry can take the technology and they can commercialize. So one of the university I can mention here, which is the Anna University. This university actually supported under the PACE program. They are working with now Arvindo Pharma and Lupin Pharma to develop their product. So these two are the good examples under BIREC Path Scheme which we have seen so far.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vinita. Just there's a question which came up. Is the company you mentioned, is that Windmill Health?
Yes.
Windmill, right? Okay. So, Mr. Venugopal, I think that hopefully answers your question. And again, thank you so much for sharing this. And I think the key takeaway from both the examples that you and Dr. Mukherjee shared are that these products, like a number of times startups think that their products are work designed to solve an Indian problem or an Indian need, but the market is global. And through IP, you can really take advantage and monetize, your designs, your intellectual property across the world.
In India, for India, and beyond, Hemang. That is the motto.
Yep.
That's wonderful. That's a.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukherjee, and thank you so much, Ms. Vinita, for sharing your thoughts. Let me now invite over Mr. Parimal Khade, who is a manager for Center for Development of Advanced Computing, CDAC. He has more than 16 years of experience in IT and R&D field. He is looking right now after the Linguistic Resource Center project, which is involved in creating very impactful linguistic resources translation projects, developing a language corpus required for machine translation systems, digitization projects, and etc. He has worked, as we also connected before this call, he has worked on another impactful project on intellectual property, which is called as IP Panorama. And you should all check it out. I'll find the link and paste it for you in the chat box. Mr. Khade has a good exposure working with ministries and government departments and accounts of the government. Very experienced person. Let me invite him over and let's learn from Mr. Khade. Mr. Khade, over to you.
Thank you, Hemangji. Can you allow me to share my screen, please? Can you give me a permission to share?
Yashpal or
Sir, already shared. You can.
thank you, Yashpal.
Only the top people.
Mr. Anu, please share to Mr. Parimal.
Season में हो जो है SLA और SLA side.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. So let me just begin. This innovations, IPR, pitching, funding, and entrepreneurship, these are not just some of the popular keywords, and they are a sign of a new India, and they are coming from all the directions. However, the one area which is most important but often ignored is IPR, which is intellectual property rights. So good morning, everyone. I'm Parimal Khade, and I come from strategic management side of IPR. And today I'll give you some insight, which I guess will help you in all identifying the right resources and the right reference for your journey in acknowledging the IPR or mentoring the young startup for that matter. So before I proceed, let me congratulate every one of you who thought to put a step forward to be an entrepreneur, and also the ASSOCHAM for organizing event of such an important topic. Unfortunately, as you all know now, that Dr. Garg is not able to address today's due to some unavoidable conditions. But this has given me an opportunity to connect with you all and explore the possibility to help you to succeed in your entrepreneur's journey. So as all we know that Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem. Okay, before I get into my presentation, please allow me to steal some more time, extend my time, and give me some input about the activities which we are doing it for this complete ecosystem, for the startup ecosystem. So as Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem is booming, and this is also happening when the pandemic of COVID is still looming around, and the all around the discouragements, the markets by slowdowns, and still we are doing an economical recovery. In the past 8 months, the India has created 26 unicorns, and the chances are quite bright that another 25 may be created before the calendar year is out. So the Indian startup is also getting recorded around $16.9 billion US venture capitalist funding by 2021, and reposing the continued faith of a global investor in Indian startup ecosystem. Now, India is the third largest startup market globally, and has jumped 3 spots up to secure the 20th spot in the global startup ecosystem index. In this upward movement with the startups across a diverse range and the technology startups creating new benchmarks and valuations, the technology and IP cannot be overemphasized in these areas. So the question is, why it is so hard to build and maintain the capacity to innovate? The reason is not just simply a failure to execute, but the failure to articulate the innovation strategy that aligns the innovation efforts with the overall business strategy. That's what I believe. Many of students of the startup generally ask about the strategies, this innovation strategies, and I generally give the example of many of you must be knowing about the Corning, which is a leading material science, technology, and innovation, who is having 170 years of a track record. You can trace down in 1879 when they created the glass envelope for the Thomson Edison light bulb, to 1912 when they developed a glass to the railroad lanterns, which withstand the high temperature, to 1947 the television pictures tube or fiber optics telecommunication in 1970, or LCD screen in 1982, to 2012 where they came up with a lightweight glass. So the point which I'm trying to put forward is basically the innovation is in a continuous activity. However, if you want to sustain in this, the overall innovation strategy is also far more important apart from our business development. So let's coming back to the startup stage. This is mostly the typical process for any innovation. It starts with identifying a problem and moving towards a production and scaling up to the production. Most of the startups fail in something known as this valley of death. It is a stage between your prototype development till you commercialize it. Now, there are many factors which can lead them to this valley. So validation of an idea is very, very important even before we start working onto the concept. So even the sir which was mentioning before that the prior art search is very, very important even when you start your journey or when you start of validating your idea. So this validation is the form of the customer discovery or customer segmentation, and it is far more important to do a prior art search report at this initial stage itself. So because even if we fell down in the valley, the IPR will help you to at least commercialize in the form of a licensing or transfer of technology. So during this product life cycle at each and every stage, the IPR can be filed and IPR can be protected at every stage. So the best time to capture the patentability concept at the beginning of the production process itself. So working through the patenting process can help a lot of organizations to develop superior product and better value propositions, of course. And as we all know that IPR does help in many ways. In case of existing product, it helps you to understand the challenges, the competition from existing solutions, which the technology landscape normally helps you out, which I'll come in my later stage, the nature of problem which being solved and what extent it is being solved. And also it helps you to identify whether there is any substitute technology available into the market which you can leverage on. So, so with this background, the startup requires the support at every stage of work, which includes the mentoring, the investors, the advisors, infrastructures. And if I have to talk from my organization side, the CDAC, we also are providing, rather we also have an arrangement by which the startup who are working into a similar domain which CDAC is working with can be partner with us and be a collaborative R&D partners with CDAC, and we jointly can work into. Apart from that, the many of ministries have taken initiatives to support the startups and the incubation centers. But today, I'll talk about my ministry, which is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and the kind of infrastructure and ecosystem we are providing to the whole startup ecosystem. So many of you must have already know that the MITI has initiated the MITI Startup Hub, which we call it as a MSH, which is a nodal entity to facilitate the MITI's vision of promoting innovation, startups, and creation of an IPR. The MSH is a national coordination facility and a monitoring center which integrate the various incubation centers, the startups, the innovative related activities of MITI, specifically focusing mostly onto the challenges. Apart from that, the MSH focuses to host various grant challenges and award them to the startups. It is also a platform to present the products as it can reaches to the maximum. Apart from that, the startups which will be able to use the various infrastructures available, such as even for that matter, the supercomputer facility at CDAC, or the IoT lab at Visakhapatnam, or 3D printers which can help to develop a prototype which is at Hyderabad, which this such kind of a facilities has been developed, and the complete ecosystem has been developed at the MSH level. To support this, Mighty has developed the startup ecosystem, such as a technology incubations or incubation and development entrepreneur scheme, which is called as a TIDE, and we are providing the financial support to the incubation centers as well as the startup. I mean, it will be provided to the startups through the incubation center. So currently there are around 51 incubation centers which being supported, under which more than 200 startups has been nurturing from the idea to commercialization stage. Apart from that, the Mighty is also creating a center of excellence in emerging technologies areas to support from the technology side. To give you further, I mean, if I have to talk about the COEs which we are supporting, so Mighty has initiated the Center of Excellence Pan India to create a cohesive technology solutions in terms of ESDM or FinTech or medical electronics or healthcare or cyber security and so on. So we basically looking forward, rather the mandate what we have been given is to foster the entrepreneurship across the nation, generation of knowledge and intellectual property, creating indigenous products and technology solutions, and of course we'll be looking to build the overall ecosystem. So Mighty, along with this SCPI, we have been setting up various COEs in specific domains, and this Center of Excellence would be offering a domain-specific specialization incubation facilities for startup, where the high standards and best practice in terms of infrastructure, technologies, leadership, and mentoring, training, etc., will be provided to the startup. Now the question is whether the already established incubation centers can leverage on this. Yes, incubation center also can connect with the MSH and leverage all these facilities which been provided to the startup ecosystem. Now, let me come back to my Center of Excellence in IPR, which I am looking after. We have two centers running, one in Pune and another is in Delhi. This basically, the Center of Excellence in Intellectual Property is a backbone for all innovation and IPR initiatives of Ministry of IT. So to give you just in a background, the COEP was formulated in sync with the efforts of Mighty to sensitize and handholding the innovators to understand and utilize the crucial interface of IP among the products, markets, and overall growth. As you all know that with national IPR policies stretching the importance to and need for robust infrastructure and platform to scale up the R&D initiatives, as well as the emergence of vibrant tech startup ecosystem in the country, it gives a full further flip to COIP to emerge as a go-to platform for all the matters in ICT, IPR in ICT mostly. Currently, we have more than 18,000 users, active users who has been using these facilities provided by COEIP, which calibrating its services actively to pursue commercialization or tech transfer or facilitations and creation of growing needs and knowledge incentive startups, which are also coming through a message. We have been providing various services under the COEIP, and as I said, that the COEIP is already playing the integral role of Mighty's activities. So there was a scheme called as a CPIT, which means the support for international patent protection in electronics and IT. But this scheme was basically focusing to provide the financial support to the innovators who wish to file the IP in the foreign countries. The main objective of that to encourage the IP filing outside the India also, and the Mighty is providing around up to 15 lakh rupees reimbursement of the filing in the foreign countries. So or the awareness scheme, I mean, if any institute or any incubation center who wish to who conduct any IPR event, we provide them financial support up to 3 lakh rupees for conducting such kind of a event. Apart from that, another major activity which the COIP is providing is we've been having the patent management and analysis and management system portal, which basically forms a fulcrum of various activities dishing out the gamut of services to the innovators community. Which includes prior art search, which includes a technology landscape report, which basically helps to identify the novelty and all. So in continuation with that, now we are at a point in time where we need to stress far from being a barrier, so IP is a part of a solution. So we are basically trying to create a complete ecosystem, creating this. So we are trying to build a national IPR counseling center, you can say, which will be looking forward to take the holistic address of whole gamuts of IPR innovation cycle, with focusing only on startup and MSME. So we basically looking forward to strengthen the available online application processing tools for handling the end-to-end application process in IPR facilitations. Also, we are trying to establish the technology transfer centers, which will be equipped with the competitiveness and tools related to commercialization of R&D in the form of licensing. There is help desk, completely AI-based help desk we are developed for 24/7 support. Of course, these chatbots will definitely help give a support, untiredly support to the innovators fraternity. But apart from that, there will be a man in the loop who will be helping the people and guiding it, which include the drafting, litigations, and format. And for that, we have also empaneled around 26 different attorneys firm who will be providing the support to the complete ecosystem.
Mr. Khade, apologies for this. Doing a time check here. How many more slides do you have, sir?
No problem, just 2 more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I'll just wrap up quickly. Last 2 slides, basically one more facility which the COIP is providing is basically the landscape report, which these are basically a very useful insight for IP ecosystem for specific technology or the key player or patent clusters or geographical market segment to understand the velocity and directions of technology. So, if these kind of reports which we are doing it, we have identified nearly about 52 areas and sub areas of a technology mapping mostly into the IT and electronics areas. Apart from that, one more activity which most of the startup can definitely leverage, and that is that is basically the patent search which we are developing it. This will be focusing, the main objective of this function is basically a comprehensive database of IP commercialization and possible technology handshake, which we are planning a technology search engine. And this database will be powered by the IP owned by various startups under MSH, TIDE, COEs, and all. And this will help the startups to collaborate with the potential startups and the R&D institutes with the big giants working together in this product space. So with that, I mean, these are few services which we are offering it. You can visit to ICT-IPR.in portal for further detail. And also you can visit to mightystartuphub.in for getting the various challenges and, seeking for various services which has been worked by Mighty. So just to conclude, I just wanted to say only one thing, that with this new wave of digitization and automation with the rapidly alterning economic around the world, various innovations lead activities are making the way, creating a job or efficiency in the services or entrepreneur ventures, market cap creations and all that. And our country is definitely looking unprecedented opportunity to create a new inclusive and sustainable growth model as it poise in transit in service economy and innovations. And we will be continue to support that from the mighty and from the COEIP. Thank you. And sorry for extending a little.
No, thank you so much. Those were very apt words for us, and really amazing to see the initiatives. So I have a bit of first-hand experience working with Métis Startup Hub, so I know the fabulous work that you all are doing in encouraging the startup ecosystem. So thank you so much for all that you do, Mr. Khade, and thanks to the entire team as well. Let me move on and invite our next speaker, Mr. Tanuj Junjunwala, who's the co-founder and CEO for Planis Technologies. Tanuj is a 2014 batch alumnus from IIT Madras with a BTech in Mechanical Engineering and a Master's in Product Design. His fascination for robotics led him to co-found Planis in 2015. Planis is a deep tech startup creating a paradigm shift in the underwater inspection industry. So these are cutting edge innovations in marine robotics. I think you should see what he has to present. They have won numerous accolades, and most recently, Tanuj was featured on the highly acclaimed Forbes 30 Under 30 2021 Asia list. So let me invite you over, Tanuj, and request ASSOCHAM to allow sharing for him as well.
Yeah, just
Tanuj, I can't hear you.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. And I can see your slides.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, Hemang and everyone else on the call. I'll quickly summarize on what Planis does and also focus on how important IP is to a deep tech company like us and what has been our IP strategy and several learnings, so to say, as well. So thank you so much and good morning. It's still good morning. Good morning to everyone. Planis is a deep tech startup that originated from the laboratories of IIT Madras, focusing on underwater inspections and helping asset owners digitalize their inspections. So in everyday life, people travel over bridges, rail bridges, or highway bridges. Often these underwater assets need inspection, and only then we can avoid any catastrophic failure. So everyone is aware of what happens when a dam bursts or a bridge collapses. There is a significant amount of catastrophic failures, loss of life, and it also leads to several other challenges. So Planis as a company is focusing on helping industries, traditional industries, get a lot of data. We are pioneers. We're proud to be pioneers in marine robotics and underwater NDT. So NDT stands for non-destructive testing. Like X-ray and MRI are NDT techniques in healthcare. There are similar NDT techniques for underwater inspection. Planis is a IIT Madras incubated company and a government recognized startup. We have over more than 6 years of experience across infrastructure, which is dams, bridges, both railway and highway bridges, marine, which is ports, terminals, and shipping, and broad energy and utilities, which is oil and gas, thermal, and nuclear as well. We've done over 170 asset inspections. So these are basically 170 overall of bridges, dams, and everything put together. Have built 8 products, have filed 20 patents, and 2 granted more recently. And we work all across India. We also have started international scale-ups across Netherlands and Saudi Arabia. On the right, you can see our test facility where we have our own pool, where we do all our indigenous designing, manufacturing, testing, and the fleet of some underwater robots at the bottom is also visible there. So our technology has 3 broad verticals. One is the data capturing platforms, which are the crawlers, the robotics, the marine robots. These are freely floating bodies. In interest of time, I cannot show you videos of these, but so they basically have cameras, sensors, and several more technologies on it that allow it to freely float. It neither sinks nor float. It moves around with electric thrusters, and we control it remotely out from the outside, so it is extremely safe. Then we have different sensors onto it, right? From corrosion monitoring sensors for steel to cleaning to concrete testing sensors and so on. These vary with assets, vary with materials that are being tested, and then the data set helps um, clients take decisions from maintenance and repair. And the lastly is visualization and analysis dashboard, where as we heard about digitalization transformations, this further helps several traditional industries to digitalize their inspections into actionable insights and make sense of data sets at a much larger CXO level. To give some numbers, India has over 300,000 bridges, and authorities need to know what these bridges are, where are they, what status are they, and what is happening with them. So these are different challenges that the industry faces, and our technologies help them. Overall, these are some of the customers we work with. We work a lot with the Indian Railways, with several water resources departments that have several dams for irrigation or hydroelectric. Again, very important for the economy, very important for livelihood of people, and very important for irrigation purposes. We also work a lot with the oil and gas PSUs. Pre-COVID, we started our international scale-up, and in Netherlands, we worked with several ports, oil and gas companies, and local municipalities, because Netherlands as a country has a lot of water, and they are one of the world's global leaders when it comes to engineering, water engineering, and battling with the water, so to say. And lastly, we also scaled up in Middle East, and hopefully by end of the year, even in Southeast Asia. So overall, as I mentioned, the technology is well established, well appreciated by the customer, and currently the company is scaling this up. And these are some numbers on traction on different places we are at and different projects we've done. And the company has over 4,000 hours of underwater experience as of today. Some photographs to give some visual aid of how this works. So the people in orange are our crew. So we basically build lightweight portable systems that can be deployed at different sites, and underwater they can be controlled remotely from the top side. You can see some photographs with screens and people monitoring these systems from the outside. Apart from doing services, we also have done a lot of collaboration development that has led to a lot of IP, particularly. So we worked with industries like Reliance, with Mazda Dog, Bharat Petroleum, more recently with Qualcomm last year, where we developed custom-built products that were not there in the industry. We're also working with a few more, and we're also part of a couple of accelerator programs where, again, we're looking at custom development and use cases. So collaboration also leads to a lot of customized development and IP creation. One such thing that we built with Qualcomm is what I wanted to highlight today. So as I mentioned, underwater data collection has its own challenges with diverse survey boats, and in a lot of cases, it's not done. Challenges are around human limitations of diving, inaccuracies, and interpretation limitations. Also, in the today's world of IoT, right? So we talk about Internet of Things, like everything is Internet of Things today. Underwater networks do not exist, which means you get data underwater sensors, like without one is aware of the ocean, the area that is covered by water. It is not practical enough to have cables laid everywhere. So when we are to capture data in such conditions, underwater networks are not that practical enough today. So the challenge what is coming to physics, where data RF to RF transformation above water is possible, but underwater to above water due to the medium change is not possible. Hence, we introduce an underwater drone platform that can basically communicate water to water from these sensor nodes, surface up, and then transfer that from the surface to the air. So basically, the drones become postman, who basically collect data from different sensor nodes and then surface up and then basically relay that information. So So this was what we developed with collaboration with Qualcomm, and I have a video that I'll just show this on that. So I think the voice won't play, but I'll give commentary. So we call this the Internet of Underwater Things, so IoT. And as I mentioned, right, there are several challenges when the data gets, you can't have two-way data transmission across two mediums. So we introduced this IoUT solution with several communication technologies installed on it, which are drone-based, or it can alternatively be fixed asset-based as well, which is close to IoT, but a mixture of two. So to demonstrate this, we installed some dummy sensors on the bed, and the drone collected data. Two-way transmission was happening. And once that data collection was done, I'll show you the actual videos as well. This is the animation to explain. This was relayed back to the tower, the GSM tower. So we did install one of the communication devices on the robot and one on the sensors. And this video shows the field implementation. So we did two field implementations. One was in the harbor, where oceanographic parameters were looked at. So that was the first use case we demonstrated this at. So we deployed the system. I'll just move this a little forward. Yeah, we deployed the system. These were the visuals of the dummy sensor nodes that was installed, and they were always relaying some form of data, some dummy data it was pinging. So the drone was capturing that data real time and then relaying that to the satellite, which is the typical communication network. And then my team was in a port, and they sent me a link in Office, and then I could access that data through an online dashboard. So that was real-time inspection data and real-time data of oxygen velocity and seismic activity. The second one we deployed was in the port basin, where again you have a lot of challenges with IoT, IoUT, where you don't get real-time updates of what's happening for vessels. Again, a very, very amateurish video, but to get an understanding that catastrophic failures can happen anytime. So again, this is a mobile drone on which it was a floating drone on which we installed the communication sensors, and we were getting real-time data sets again of the depth of the asset, of what is the depth in real time at that particular location that could be held for the marine industry. So overall, the applications for this is broadly military. You can do a lot of real-time reconnaissance, mine countermeasures, and so on. It's a lot of offshore for energy utilities, the wind farm industry in the future, and several more offshore as resources on land deplete. There will be more offshore technology coming up. So data gathering from there. Scientific research, when you talk about coral reef monitoring, we heard a lot of expeditions India does in the Lakshadweep, where over 15 days or 20 days vessels are sent. What if there could be real-time sensors that could be there, and you don't really need to charter vessels for such use cases? And then some more better data collection when it comes to disaster planning, where we talk about tsunamis, earthquakes, and so on. So it's again imagination, a game of sensors, a game of the application and what we need, and then a platform that we've developed could be somewhere which could be used. Something that we are already looking at is a smart port solution, where in the photographs, as you see, several buoys. These are weather buoys that are more or less dumb in nature. They are just there to tell you, it's like a milestone. It's like those markers on roads we used to see earlier on that says X kilometers away. That's for the vessel. But now we can digitalize these to gather much more data in form of depth, in the form of if it's drifting away, and then that can add a lot of values. And the market size is millions of navigation buoys in the world available. So this is the power of IoT and IoUT combined that can be plugged in together. Now, coming to the most important aspect of this, I have just 2-3 slides and then I'm done. So the strategy for IP. So several companies would have told about deep tech companies that IP is more important to protect yourself than, of course, there is commercial value in it, but it's more to protect yourself. So once there is a good technology developed, which is, let's start from the left side, 9 o'clock, where we focus on in-house indigenous technologies, we develop something. there is always room to monetize that IP through licensing or collaborations, because there will be scaling up challenges. There will be company limitations where you cannot be everywhere, and there could be some cross-industry use cases where you may not want to be there, but your IP could be used somewhere else. So that is how you can monetize it. The next step would be that only for an invention that has relevance to the market adds value to the firm, right? So just because it's a unique way of doing things and there's an IP, there's no guarantee it's going to be licensed. There needs to be relevance to commercialize it to someone, and so on. IP protection can diminish rivalry and behave as a defensive mechanism from infringement. So as I mentioned, once you IP some technology, there's always the competition or someone in the market will have to cross that barrier, find a new way of solving that problem or building that tech, or coming to you and licensing it from you. And of course, you can always say, I'm not going to give that to you. So that, of course, adds a lot of strength and entry barriers. And lastly, having relentless innovation cycles keep competition at bay. So this has to be a strategy in the blood of the company. When we talk about IP is the eventuality, but it comes to the innovation, building to a solution, product, IP, and then you're creating more entry barriers for competition, for the industry, and also allowing the company to license it and collaborate with national, international partners broadly. So there is a lot at play when it comes to just IP, and it's not just filing a patent, but why, what, how, and why not. Sometimes people don't file IPs because they don't want others to know what's happening in the stealth mode, right? It's going up on a platform eventually. So coming from from the top to bottom, so typically the approach is, you have to brainstorm on the IP potential at the initiation of R&D phase, that we're building something new. What is the potential? Is there something in the market we could infringe or not? We need to do a prior art search with the invention, which also a lot of resources go into it. It's both national and international, because if you're putting in resources of manpower and people, you need to know if you're building something someone has already built, right? Otherwise, anyways, that doesn't have commercial value because you're infringing on someone else's IP. So this is very important at the initial stage. Assign periodic targets for inventors for filing invention. This is again a internal KPI companies can have, because it has to, again, be a top management strategy. You cannot leave it to your junior engineers to do it, and if they do it, it's a bonus for the company. It has to be top driven, where there has to be KPI set to it. Dedicated IP management team has to be there for tracking it. It's a lot of back and forth from attorneys, from filing authorities, from completely reverting to claims, cross claims, and then final hearing if there are eventually. And then you have to streamline the process, and SOPs need to be done, because after doing some engineering for 3 years, you tell the engineers to put an IP, which is the invention clause. Probably some people have left the company because for moving on better things. So it's a lot of going back to literature and building that. So as the technology is being developed, if there is some documentation put in place, real time, over every quarter, every half year, that would help you in filing IPs faster at a later stage. Of course, the documentation may not be of use for IP, but anyways, it's a good practice from a governance perspective in a tech company. Lastly, identify the target markets for IP. For IP filing is expensive, very expensive when you go at an international stage. So it's very important to know why are you filing it, where are you filing it, and until how many years you will continue to file it. There is a cost associated with everything, including an abroad attorney who is going to charge by a euro and not by a rupee in India. So the strategy needs to be really well laid out on why are we doing it. And if you don't have resources, it's not worth putting efforts into it because it requires resources. And it cannot just be done for the sake of it. Lastly, highlighting the Planet's portfolio of IP. So we've catered to a bunch. So starting from the left and top, in intellectual property have about 20, 4 industrial patents, 14 technical patents, and 2 granted. We are hoping for another 4, 5 to be granted later this year. Then we have 34 trademarks as well. At early stages, often we also thought trademarks may not be of value. We're not a large company. But as the brand builds, trademarks become very important. And we're fortunate we filed several trademarks at that stage, so that now we have some branding around several projects. And these trademarks cannot just be Planis as a name. It is also on the product names, on the software names, on the solution names, on the platform names. Because once you marketed it, once people buy it, let's say someone else files a trademark, right? And then you need to pay that person or pay a royalty to the person for using your efforts, for everything you've built. So hence it's very important to do trademark filing. And there's a large market that is there where people identify trademarks not filed, they file it and then sell off that trademark to a large entity, right? So please don't be a part. Please, be very careful and do it upfront. Lastly, as I mentioned, we did do a lot of joint collaborations. There are a lot of joint filings that are done for trademarks, industrial designs, copyrights, and technical filing, which is another way to broaden the portfolio. Negotiate hard, negotiate your terms on the commercialization rights well. Just because an agency has paid for a collaboration development doesn't mean IP belongs to them. IP could still belong to you, but there could be commercial benefits given back to that agency that has funded the IP in terms of discounted services or in terms of some honeymoon period for the first 2-3 years of free services, but after that it gets commercial, right? So just because someone has funded a collaborative development doesn't mean the IP belongs to them. So you can fight it out. You build the technology. And lastly, we have several more under filing, as we always have R&D efforts and some new solutions under development. So overall, yes, as of today, the collaborative joint filings and incentives have only happened over the last 1.5 years compared to the 7 years of the life of the company. So the percentages of funding sources are weight self-funded, but as we grow, I believe this would self-funding patents would reduce and the other incentives would increase. And thanks to Qualcomm, they supported us in several patent filings over the last 1 year, over the last 1.5 years as well. And I believe there are several more along in the collaboration efforts that would come soon. We also took a lot of advantage on the cost benefits from the Government of India, Startup India law rules for startups for IP. They were fast forwarded and there were discounted fees with the attorneys for the same. So thank you so much. That's my email ID in case anyone wants to connect. Happy to help you and answer any of your questions offline as well. And available on the call to answer anything. Thank you once again, everyone, to give me this opportunity to share Planis and our few small successes we had in the past. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanuj. This was very, very insightful. And one of the key takeaways for me was, and this is something which I've seen in very good startups, when the founder's office, when the CTOs, the CEOs of the founders believe in IP, that message is absorbed very well by the growing team. And so what that happens is that while the founders were the first innovators in that startup, you are setting a pipeline for the future innovators. Because as you start growing, you want the next generation, to keep innovating for you, and that keeps your IP portfolio very strong. You can also see the bunch of questions in the chat box, but in the interest of time, I'll invite over the next speaker, and maybe we can bring you up towards the end, or you can answer through the chat.
Sure.
It's your preference. Now, let me invite over my colleague, Mr. Pushkar Apte, who I know for a number of years. He has been with Qualcomm for over 12 years. He currently leads the QDIC program activities, which is the Qualcomm Design in India program, one of which is QDIC, which is the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge. This is India's longest running hardware and IoT startup incubator, which has incubated 77 startups so far. And prior to this, he was working on very interesting projects involving chipset sales, software licensing activities with leading Indian smartphone brands. Prior to joining Qualcomm, Pushkar was at Texas Instruments. He holds a BE degree in Electronics and Telecom from University of Pune, an MS in Electrical Engineering from Texas A&M College Station, and an MBA from USC Los Angeles. Pushkar, over to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Hemang. Can you hear me? Just a quick mic check.
Yeah,
All right.
very clear.
Thanks for the introduction. In the interest of my position, very tight. First of all, thanks to ASSOCHAM for inviting me to this webinar. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some information about how Qualcomm as a corporate is encouraging IP in the ecosystem. So let me share my screen here to get started. Let me know if once it's up. Are you able to see it?
Not yet. It's showing you're starting to share content, but hasn't appeared yet. Also, I'm not sure if it's just at mine, but your video was breaking up, so you might want to consider that. I can see your slide.
Okay. Yeah, so like I said, my talk is going to focus on how Qualcomm as a corporate is encouraging IP filing for startups. So to set the context, I want to talk about innovation first, right? IP comes as a second stage. It's intellectual property, but you have to first generate that property, right? How do you do that? So we took a holistic approach to the whole situation that we saw in India. Research is happening across the board, and we needed to contribute to every aspect of that research. So if you see, we basically structured our approach in four prongs, right? On the left, on the top, you see the university relations program. We have a India fellowship program that encourages research in the top tier institutes like IITs, IIScs. And I won't read out the stats; those are for you to read. It's a sizable grant that we give out every year, and over the course of time, starting from 2016 when this program was initiated, we have given about 58 fellowships so far, and each of these fellowships are about 10 lakhs each, given to a smart team of researchers comprising of a faculty member or two and a couple of masters or PhD students. Right. So this is one way we are encouraging the academic community to generate that property, intellectual property. The next program, which I personally lead, is the bottom left, is the startup incubation program for startups. We call it QDIC, and I'm hoping that over the course of time, that acronym has at least become familiar in the startup ecosystem. So QDIC is targeted towards startups that are building solutions using some sort of hardware as an underlying base. We do not incubate startups that are purely, based on apps and services. It has to have some element of AI, machine learning, edge compute, connectivity, all of these aspects that Qualcomm actually can contribute their effort or our efforts towards. So those side of startups are the ones that we actually incubate as part of QDIC. Hemang has already talked about L2 Pro at the beginning of the session, so I won't go there. That's another initiative that we have for startups to learn and how to protect their intellectual property. So we'll park that for now. And as you can see, we've incubated about 77 startups so far. And I'll get into more details as we progress through the presentation. But we have seen a good success rate in terms of the funds raised by these startups as well as the commercialization of the products, right? So out of 77, we still have about 22 plus startups actually generating revenue and doing commercial activities with their technology and solutions. On the top right, you see we have a program also for our customer base, which is the licensed customer base in the country. And so we support them through our innovation lab. The lab is led by Hemang himself, and we have a dedicated team of engineers that supports these customers in developing a very specific solution. So in the past, we have worked on things like NIC cards, which is network interface cards for smart meters for a large electronics group based out of Bangalore. We have worked for on a project for one of the ride sharing companies in Bangalore on implementing a particular aspect of their electronics
for their ride share vehicles, and so on. So these are so examples that that show that we are not only engaging with the academic, with the startups, but also with regular established customers. And then finally, we have the ventures initiative, obviously, that boosts the overall ecosystem, startup ecosystem, with the investments that they make in the country. So talking a little more specific about the quadrant on the bottom left, which is the Qualcomm Design in India Challenge. As I said, startups can generate intellectual property once the environment is conducive to that, right? We can't expect people to focus on intellectual property if they're running around, worrying about other more important or basic survival aspects of the company. So what we have done is structured a program where a lot of these things are sort of, to the extent that Qualcomm can help, taken care of. So as soon as the startups come into the program, we give them a grant to alleviate any sort of cost that they would have to incur towards building the prototype, the final prototype that they would take commercial. So they initially get a grant from Qualcomm. Of course, the reason startups are very interested in coming and working with us is the innovation lab, a multi-million-dollar investment that Qualcomm has made dedicated to the startup program, which Hemang, as I said, he personally leads that with a dedicated engineering team. So that's the biggest benefit of the program. But then we'll park that for now, because that's a given, when you talk about a Qualcomm innovation program. The other thing that, of course, I'm going to talk about is the IPR generation incentive. But, like I said, that's the last bit of it, right? First, we need to make sure that the startups are, sort of have an environment where they can actually focus on generating an intellectual property. So the what we've seen over the years, starting from 2016, is that most of the companies, the deep tech companies that work with us, are started or founded by technologists. People who have worked in leading roles in engineering at corporates, or even folks like Tarun, who have come in, out of premier institutes and taken the entrepreneurship route. But perhaps they don't have too much experience in other aspects, like growing their organization, or addressing the competition, or growing the customer base. A lot of knowledge around designing for scaling. So these are the things that we cover through our mentorship workshops for the founders, so that they have a overall view of where they should focus on when they want to move the company forward, right? So this is covered by the mentorship aspect of the program. We also don't want to break our ties with our startups right when they graduate. We actually continue engaging with them over the course of the program through conferences and trade shows. And also, we have this commercial fund that is accessible to our alumni network. So it actually is a fund that startups can tap into for reimbursement for costs they have incurred to take their product commercial. Now, it covers things like any mandatory certifications, especially in the case of medical devices. We have seen, if you need to go sell this device maybe in US or Europe, and there are some mandatory regulatory certifications that you have to undertake, and which are very expensive at times. Startups can come back, alumni startups, I should say, right? Not the current cohort, but the alumni startups who have already finished the incubation with us. They can also come back and claim reimbursement against some of the costs. Obviously, we have a limited budget ourselves, so we may not be able to offset all of it, but we try to the extent possible to offset some of that cost that they've incurred. The other is industrial design. Like I said, a lot of the companies that are building these prototypes are very good at the engineering work, but when it comes to packaging that and making it a commercially viable, sellable package, they have to go to a third party, an external agency, to get that design work done. And there are costs associated with that, right? And these are heavy costs, right? So we offset some of that. And the third aspect is, hey, this is a commercialization fund. So if you have a purchase order that you're manufacturing, your product for, come back to us and claim some of that manufacturing cost from us, right? Because this is a commercial activity, it is helping you scale up. So those are the aspects that that are covered by the commercialization fund. This is apart from all the monetary incentives that we provide, which, by the way, I want to just make a mention that, as I said, we want the startups to to have a conducive environment, and when they graduate, should not have to worry about raising funds or be strapped for cash when when they're just getting off the ground with the prototype. So we have a very sizable prize amount that we give to the top startups. Planis actually was the winner of last year's design challenge, one of the winners, I should say. We have 3 winners usually. They were the first runner-up, and we're hoping that some of the the big prize amount, which for the 3 startups totals up to about 1.5 crores, is enough for them to have at least some runway till the time they can line up other investors. So having said that, I will get to the last piece, which is the patent generation incentive. And as Tarun said, some of the patent they filed, they got reimbursement for the cost from Qualcomm. It's not a huge amount, but we try to encourage our startups, not just through this patent generation incentive. We're lucky to have a person like Hemang in the team that has a lot of IP background over the course of his career. So he usually guides the startups on at least identifying whether something is patentable or not. We try to guide them towards the processes rather than the actual the patent filing itself, because we don't contaminate any of their intellectual property by looking at it. So we guide them through the process without actually getting ourselves plugged into it. But we do try to offset some of the costs by giving them an incentive for up to 2 patents for filing these. Now, what this has helped with, and we have observed our startups over the years, is once we prime them with this incentive, many of the founders actually have come back and told us that they have filed for many more patents after that. And this is a very good trend that that we like to see, that the incentive was really, I mean, they didn't file the patent just because there was an incentive being offered by Qualcomm, but rather it was something that opened the doors and the thought process. And then once they see the value of the patents and protecting their intellectual property, they continue on that path as they progress with their startup journeys. Just wanted to pull up 2 or 3 examples of our startups, and primarily because we have seen startups that have come to us and have worked with agencies, from the speakers that have spoken before, Dr. Mukherjee, Dr. Garg from MIT, and these startups have actually been funded in part by BIRAC, by CCAM, and they have relatively very strong patentable technology in their respective fields. And you may have come across them. Black Frog is very pertinent in today's time. They're helping the last mile immunization by offering these refrigerated carriers, which can regulate the temperature without, and it can actually be connected all the time. You can monitor the environment within the carrier, and that way the wastage of the vaccines is very minimal. They have been delivering these up to the northeast areas, and we have seen a lot of vaccinations happening with the use of this Embolio product. Similarly, Dozy is another startup that is actually helping in current times with their offering patentable solution that they have, which is a pad which you put under your mattress and converts any bed, whether it's at home or in an ICU, or in a hospital rather, to a semi-ICU sort of condition where a central monitoring station can be used to monitor up to 100 patients at a time, right? So that's a very, very great and a very pertinent technology in today's times. And then obviously the third one is Respirated, which is a affordable ventilator. So again, all of them very relevant. Biodesign, again, funded in part by BIRAC and CCAM.
Pushkar, just a time check. We have 2 minutes remaining.
So
thank you.
So other initiatives I wanted to call out are, one of this is a very recent initiative by NASSCOM Center of Excellence for IoT. What they've started is a portal which actually summarizes innovations from startups. So think of it as innovation summaries. You can approach them, and they would be, I think, happy at least for the initial few startups till the time that the costs increase to a point where they may not be able to fund it. But I would say I would encourage all the startups that are on the call today to approach them to see if they would like their innovations to be called out on this particular portal. This is a fantastic initiative by NASSCOM, so do consider it. The link is provided there. Do check out this this portal. It's a very, very simplified view of your patent, basically. Okay, other funding resources, I don't want to go into details because some of these were already called out by the previous speakers. But just wanted to reiterate that every state, now we have 36 states, out of which 30 have startup policies, and each of these states have various incentives, which include patent incentives. So do check out the state policies and the incentive that they offer. And just to give you an example, Karnataka incentives are listed here. So you can go and search on the Startup India portal and look up what Karnataka has to offer to its startups. Similarly, at a central government level, you have the Ministry of Electronics that is encouraging filing for patents. For international patents, you can get up to 15 lakhs of support from MeitY. We would like to find a way to encourage some of our startups who have filed for patents in India to go international. Many of them actually done it and actually have been granted US patents in other countries like EU, Singapore, Australia. And so, hopefully some of the startups can make use of this incentive from MeitY to take their patents international. And then finally, just wanted to point out the partnerships we have. We have been partnering with NASSCOM since the inception of our design challenge. So they are a very strong partner for us. The MeitY Startup Hub, we had a partnership for a year, dedicated partnership for a year with Dr. Garg's blessings. We actually gave the opportunity for some of the startups from incubation centers like IITM, Kochi Startup Village, and some others, and brought startups into our own program from there. Then we have a MOU with CCAM currently, where we have, the reason for this is particularly because many of our startups, about 25% over the years, are coming from the medtech area. And we see value in partnering with CCAM, where they can actually open some doors for them, not just through funding, but also business opportunities that they can drive towards. And then, of course, we have partnership with private incubators like the Shell E4 on some of the clean energy stuff, Microsoft for startups, for some of the cloud benefits that they offer. And then MathWorks, our startups, like I said, are a lot of those that need hardware development tools, modeling tools, and MathWorks has a lot of those in MATLAB and Simulink. So these startups get access to some of the tools for free for a period of time, and they're not burdened by the cost of these additional tools that they have to secure. So I'm going to leave it at that, and thank you all of the audiences for participating in today's session, giving me the opportunity to explain what Qualcomm is doing for the ecosystem. So over to you, Hemant.
Hemant, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Anirban. Thank you, Pushkar. I've seen you work firsthand, with the startups so passionately, ensuring their success. So it's a true privilege for me. From Qualcomm, I also have my colleague Anirban, who was a core part of the L2 Pro program. Again, a very passionate person working on many impactful programs. So this brings us to the end of our agenda for today. Thank you for all the attendees. You kept it engaging. You kept it live with many questions throughout the session. Thank you to each and every speaker, Dr. Mukherjee, Mr. Khare, Tanuj, and certainly Pushkar and Anirban. And of course, deep thanks to ASSOCHAM for organizing this. I will bring this session now to a close. Hope all of you have a wonderful day ahead. See you all.